Hello everyone, here we are. Okay, so this is a director's cut, and as you can see, this is director's cut on the regression equation in a particular look at and understanding of the regression equation as it concerns using it as a vehicle in making inquiries into complexity and into complexity of effects on the outcome variable. So regression equation as a vehicle, so means by which to inquire into complexity of effects. I don't know if my producers like me writing this whole thing out. I'm not going to keep it up here long, so don't worry, people. I'm going to get it down here. But I want people to know what we're going to be looking at here. So director's cut concerning the regression equation as a vehicle, as a means by which to inquire into complexity of effects. Okay, so now you got what we're going to be doing here, and let me show you what I mean. So here you see the regression equation, and in a moment you will, once I get it up there. And I'm assuming that you've seen the videotape series that I have on the regression equation. So you basically know what the regression equation looks like. But in the director's cut, I want to take it a step further in terms of how it can be used as a means to engage in inquiries into the complexity of effects. Because in the director's cut, we aren't just interested in effects in a simpler form, but in effects as they come closer to how they actually occur in the real world. So we want to go further, and we want to look for greater complexity of effects, and I want to show you how the regression equation can serve to do that. Okay, so the regression equation. Here we have, but I'm going to bring this over. I want to have room here. So we'll go like this over here. Okay, so that's y hat. And as you know, y hat, that's the fancy looking y, okay? It's got a hat on. It's got a hat on right here, okay? And y hat, that is the predicted value on the outcome variable measure as predicted by person scores on the predictor variables in the model. Okay, so we talked about that earlier regarding the regression equation. And so that equals, we have a constant, and we've talked about how to understand the constant, and then plus, and we have a unstandardized regression coefficient for our first predictive variable x sub 1. And so this is our first pairing of a regression coefficient value with our first predictive variable x sub 1. And then we have our, again, these are unstandardized regression coefficient values. This is our unstandardized regression coefficient value for our second predictive variable. And then we have an unstandardized regression coefficient value for our third predictive variable. Okay, now this regression equation goes further, okay? But we're going to stop it right now where it is because I want to start you out just with a baseline view of how we might understand the effect of each of our predictor variables on the outcome variable. Okay, so now let me bring in a little bit more order into this. So that means I got to go over here to get another marker. Okay, so bring in this blue one. And I just want to highlight, and you saw this earlier on the videotape regarding the regression equation, but I want to bring it in a little bit different way. When I did it in the videotape, I put a box around these. I'm not going to do that here. I just want to put a blue line under each pair of the unstandardized regression coefficient value and the accompanying predictor variable. Just to, separate it out a bit here, because, we don't like things to be jamming up too much here and becoming, what is all this stuff, all these symbols? So we can just kind of separate this out. So here we have this pair of an unstandardized regression coefficient value for this particular predictor variable, unstandardized regression coefficient value for this particular predictor variable, and the unstandardized regression coefficient value for this particular predictor variable. Okay, so the blue lines just help to separate them out a bit and make them more obvious. That's the only reason I put them in there. Okay, now let's get some specifics in here. And let's say we're talking about predicting scores on an outcome variable and an outcome variable measure concerning organizational commitment. So here we have organizational commitment. Now I want to point this one out to you in advance. This occurred for me. For those of you who have seen some other tapes, maybe you've got these tapes, maybe you haven't, but there was a time I was struggling with how to spell organizational commitment. But those days are over. I've got it now. So I'm not going to spell the whole thing because it's too long, but it's got 2 M's and 1 T. So not 2 T's, 1 T. All right. So organizational commitment. So here we're seeking to predict scores on an organizational commitment measure, and we're seeking to predict those scores in terms of person scores on certain predictor variables. Okay, so let's say that our first predictor variable is job satisfaction. So there we go, job satisfaction. And our second predictor variable is employee salary. And our third predictor variable is positiveness of work environment. Okay. All right, so this is where we start, okay? And starting here, we are interested in understanding what the effect is of each of our predictor variables, controlling for the effects of all of the other predictor variables in the model, of understanding the effect of each of our predictor variables on organizational commitment. And so we are interested in understanding the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And as we know from the tapes on the regression equation, we understand that effect in terms of the regression coefficient value for job satisfaction. So that regression coefficient value represents the amount of change that occurs on the outcome variable, in this case organizational commitment, for every 1 unit of change on the predictor variable job satisfaction. And if that is a significant unstandardized regression coefficient value, meaning it significantly differs from 0, then we can say that job satisfaction has an effect on organizational commitment. And again, this is after controlling for the effects of all of the other predictor variables in the model. Okay? All right, so great. We can see what that unstandardized regression coefficient value is. It can be tested as to whether it significantly differs from 0. And if it does, then we can say that job satisfaction has a significant effect on organizational commitment as represented by the value of this regression coefficient, this unstandardized regression coefficient. And we can do the same thing here with employee salary. So we're going to have an unstandardized regression coefficient value associated with the second predictor variable, employee salary. And if that unstandardized regression coefficient value is significantly different from 0, then we say that we have a significant effect of employee salary on organizational commitment. And you guessed it, do the same thing right here. We can assess the effect, estimate the effect of positiveness of the work environment on organizational commitment by testing this unstandardized regression coefficient value as to whether it's significantly different from 0. And if it is, then we can say we have a significant effect of positiveness of work environment on organizational commitment. Okay, so let's say that is in fact the case. Okay, for each one of our regression coefficient values, that they are each significantly different from 0. And so we can say we have a significant effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, a significant effect of employee salary on organizational commitment, and a significant effect of positiveness of work environment on organizational commitment. Are we done? Are we through? Come on, I want to wait to hear from you. Are we through? Remember, this is director's cut. Director's cut. And what is the purpose of director's cut? We want to take things a step further. And in this case, we're going to take things a step further because we're going to ask, well, you know, is that all there is? I remember there was a song, it was like a part of some movie. The person sang, "Is that all there is?" I don't remember anything about who sang it or what movie it was. But it's kind of sad, you know. You think, oh gosh, okay, well, you know the estimate of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment and employee salary, an estimate of its effect on organizational commitment, an estimate of the effect of positiveness of work environment on organizational commitment, and like that's it. That's how we're to understand the effect of each of those predictor variables on the outcome variable? Probably not. Probably not, in fact. We live in a world that is complex, and effects on organizational commitment are probably many and varied. And we do start to get to complexity in terms of varied effects because we do have 3 predictor variables here. And so we are looking at a multifactorial effect on organizational commitment. But we also have complexity, quite likely, regarding each of these effects, just looking at them by themselves. This effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. Is it just one effect? Is it just one effect that applies across people and characteristics of people and different situations and different circumstances? That is just the same effect across all of these different conditions and situations and circumstances and qualities of people and their different characteristics. It's the same effect across everyone, circumstances, situations, same effect. Well, I certainly wouldn't assume that because there's complexity in effects and in any particular effect. And it probably is not an effect that applies across the board. I certainly wouldn't assume that, and you certainly should test for whether that is true or not. And so for doing these inquiries into complexity, and here we're talking about the complexity of any particular effect, the complexity of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, the complexity of the effect of employee salary on organizational commitment, the complexity of the effect of positiveness of work environment on organizational commitment. Is it just one effect across everything we can think about in terms of people, place, situation, circumstances? Just one effect as represented by the unstandardized regression coefficient value associated with each of the predictor variables? Well, I wouldn't assume that. I would certainly test for that and see if there actually is greater complexity, because there's certainly a reasonable likelihood that there is greater complexity in the effects. So you certainly should test for it. So the question now that we're going to address then is, how do you test for it? And you test for it through tests of moderation, otherwise known as tests of interaction effects. Okay, so let's take a look at what that might look like. Okay, so perhaps, and this is one way you can get to exploring or doing inquiries into the complexity of effects. Perhaps I've been looking at the research literature on the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, and perhaps there are mixed results. Perhaps it is true that in some studies there's a strong effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, but in other studies there's only a weak effect, or perhaps no effect at all. And so, you start scratching your head, right? You're scratching your head, okay, and you're going, gosh, what's accounting for those mixed results? And what could very well be accounting for those mixed results are unmeasured variables in these studies, okay? And so particular unmeasured variables in these studies, and the studies in terms of the samples that they have vary in terms of these variables. And so when these unmeasured variables, they're present but they're unmeasured, are at one level, well, there you have a study which finds a strong effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. But in some other study with a different sample, that variable, still unmeasured, may be at some very different level, and there you get weak or no effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And so you start to think about, well, what might these unmeasured variables be, or what may a particular unmeasured variable be in these different samples that are giving us, is contributing toward, amongst other variables too that are unmeasured possibly, but that is contributing toward these mixed results that we're finding across studies. And you may say, well, I think that we need to take into account employee salary. And in these different studies that are finding these different results, the samples include, let's say, employees whose overall the average salary may be quite different across different samples of different studies. And we want to now, in this study, actually measure this variable of employee salary and see if it makes a difference in the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And so for doing that in our regression equation, it looks like this. Here we go. Take it down here. So plus, and we'll get an unstandardized regression coefficient value for this. And this is going to be B sub 4. And here we have the interaction of X sub 1, job satisfaction, and X sub 2, employee salary. And so here we're testing the interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary. And more specifically, we are testing employee salary as a moderator to see if it moderates the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And if this unstandardized regression coefficient value is significantly different from 0, what that is telling us is that we have a significant interaction effect, and more specifically, we have a significant test of moderation. That in fact, let's say we divide employee salary into 2 levels, high employee salary. I'll put this as a little notation here for you. High employee salary and low employee salary. Just real quick, I'll get rid of this later. You're not going to see it in the regression equation. I'm just going to put it in there real quick for you. If we get a significant interaction, in this case, this represents a significant test of employee salary as a moderator, and that it moderates the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. So if we have, for this moderator, 2 different levels, high employee salary and low employee salary, what that is saying is that we have one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment for high salaried employees, and we have a different effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment for low salaried employees. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get rid of this because it's not actually part of the regression equation. But now we've introduced complexity into our understanding of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment through finding this significant job satisfaction by employee salary interaction, and specifically this significant test of employee salary as a moderator, because at the very least now, finding this significant interaction effect and the significant test of the moderator employee salary, we can say that we just don't have one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, but at least 2 effects. One for high salaried employees and another for low salaried employees. And that then, in part, to a degree, provides order to our mixed results across studies, because in some studies where we found let's say a strong effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, let's just say that in those studies you had, let's say, low salaried employees. But in other studies where you had weak or no effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, there in those studies you had on average high salaried employees. Okay, so that brings some order to an understanding of the mixed results. Now we understand better why we're getting these mixed results across studies in terms of different levels of salary of the employees in the studies. Okay, so let me get my other marker here, and we'll go ahead and put 2 blue lines under the interaction that we're testing here, and specifically testing for whether we have a significant moderator in employee salary. And we can do this again. Here I'm going double-handed here, all these markers. We can also ask, well, is there just one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment? Well, let's say that we've already found this significant interaction. We say, well, no, there isn't. because we know that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment depends on the level of employee salary. Okay, let's say we want to look at it further. Here we have B sub 5. And here we're going to look at what is called a two-way interaction. This was a two-way interaction, okay, because it involved these two predictor variables, job satisfaction and employee salary. So that's a two-way interaction. Here's another two-way interaction, this being of job satisfaction and positiveness of the work environment. So that would be X sub 3. Okay, so now we're asking the question, let's go further with this. We found so far that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment can't just be understood in terms of one effect, just across all people in terms of their characteristics and across all situations and places and circumstances. No, we've already found with this significant job satisfaction by employee salary interaction that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment depends on the level of employee salary. Well, we can ask the same question here. Might it be that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment might vary according to the level of positiveness of the work environment? So here, just to put this in like we did over here we have X sub 3, that's positiveness of work environment, and we're going to test it as a moderator, and we might divide it up in terms of a high level of positiveness of the work environment and a low level of positiveness of the work environment. So in other words, a negative work environment. And we do our analysis here, and we get our unstandardized regression coefficient value estimate. And let's say that it is significantly different from 0. That means that our job satisfaction by positiveness of work environment interaction is significant. And it also means that this test of the moderator, positiveness of work environment, is significant. It's a significant test of positiveness of work environment as a moderator of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. So what we know once we see that significant interaction effect is we know that in addition to the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment being different depending on the level of employee salary, it is also a different effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment depending on the level of positiveness of work environment. We first saw that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment depended on the level of employee salary here when we found this significant two-way interaction between job satisfaction and employee salary. And now we further learn that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment also differs according to the level of positiveness of work environment. So we get one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment in work environments that are at a highly positive level, and we get a different effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment in work environments whose level of positivity is low or that are negative. So we see that in this significant interaction of job satisfaction and positiveness of work environment, that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment differs or depends on the level of positiveness of the work environment. So now, and here I'll put the double blue lines here for you. we've learned two things. First, in terms of this significant two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary, and with this significant two-way interaction of job satisfaction and positiveness of work environment, that the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment it differs depending on the level of employee salary. And we also see, now moving over to this two-way interaction of job satisfaction and positiveness of the work environment, this is a significant two-way interaction, that also the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment differs according to the level of positiveness of the work environment. Okay, so now we're adding considerable complexity to our understanding of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And this can happen in different ways. Perhaps the two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary is significant, but the two-way interaction of job satisfaction and positiveness of the work environment is not significant. So let's say that we have this situation. I'm going to get these markers right here. That here we have a significant two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary, but a non-significant two-way interaction of job satisfaction and positiveness of the work environment. Well, now we've learned something different, haven't we, about the complexity of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, because we learn that that effect differs according to the level of employee salary, but not according to the level of positiveness of work environment. And the level of positiveness of work environment, it doesn't make any difference in terms of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. Okay, so then we would learn that. The point is, we're learning about the particular nature of the complexity of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. So it's not just one effect, that it has multiple effects, and we can test that by testing for the significance of different interactions and testing the significance of different moderators. Okay, now I want you to hold on. So find something you can hold on to here, okay? Just kind of get ready, okay? Kind of get ready, because we're going to take this a step further into inquiries of complexity, all right? So let's go a little bit further with this. And here we're going to get this off here. Get this off here. And this doesn't appear in the regression equation, so we don't want that there either. Let's go ahead and let's ask the question, okay, let's look at two moderators in our interaction. A moderator and a higher order moderator. So that we're having the influence of two moderators acting on the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. Okay, if we're going to look at that, hold on now, it's not as bad as it seems. If we're going to look at that, it looks like this. So plus B sub 6. So here we're estimating the unstandardized regression coefficient value for a test of a three-way interaction. And here is the three-way interaction involving the three predictor variables that we have right here of job satisfaction, employee salary, and positiveness of work environment. three-way interaction. Okay, I have a videotape that talks in detail about how to understand a three-way interaction, so I want you to go look at that, okay? But I'm going to have something to tell you about it right now, okay, in terms of this regression equation. But for all the details, go to that videotape. But let's look at it now in terms of how it appears in this regression equation and how it represents even added complexity, okay, and substantially added complexity in terms of our understanding of the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. And how you can look at this is, first of all, and let me get blue marker for this. Here we have job satisfaction. And here we have employee salary. Okay, and here we have positiveness of the work environment. And here we have a test of a moderator. Employee salary, we're testing it as a moderator. And positiveness of the work environment, we are testing it as a higher order moderator. All right? Okay. So now what I want you to do in your mind here is I want you to, first of all, think about the three-way interaction, but think about within that three-way interaction, think about the two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary. And what you're testing, looking at the three-way interaction here, but then considering the two-way interaction within the three-way interaction, what you're asking is, does the two-way interaction differ in terms of how it looks on an interaction plot and statistically how it breaks down when you statistically analyze the two-way interaction? Does the two-way interaction look differently depending on the level of the higher order moderator positiveness of the work environment? So the two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary looks one way at a high level of positiveness of the work environment, but that two-way interaction looks quite different at a low level of positivity of the work environment or a negative work environment. That's what we're asking when we're testing the three-way interaction. We're looking at the two-way interaction within this three-way interaction. In this case, the two-way interaction of job satisfaction and employee salary, and we're asking whether it looks different in an interaction plot, and what that will amount to is, does it statistically look different in terms of when we statistically break down the two-way interaction at one level of the higher order moderator, positiveness of the work environment, versus another level of the higher order moderator. Okay, now that's as far as I'm going to take it with the three-way interaction within the regression equation, but you'll see that all spelled out in detail on the videotape for the three-way interaction. But what I want you to see here, and I want you to kind of go like this. I'm going to turn here. Here I go. I'm going to turn, and I hope that this can work here and kind of mess up everything here in terms of how I'm coming across on the camera. But I want to go like this. See, I want to kind of go like this. I hope it's working. I hope it's working. And what I'd like to do is reach my hands out like this and go, wow, wow. Is that working? Wow, like this. Wow, wow. Look, we're doing a lot more here with this regression equation than just looking at an effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, an effect of employee salary on organizational commitment, an effect of positiveness of work environment on organizational commitment, and now through the tests of these interactions, this two-way interaction, this two-way interaction, this three-way interaction, we are beginning to, because there's more interactions we could be looking at here, other two-way interactions. In fact, really, well, let's see. We have job satisfaction by employee salary. We have job satisfaction by positiveness of work environment. There's really only one more. That would be employee salary by positiveness of work environment. We don't have that in this regression equation. We can certainly put it in here. And then we have the three-way interaction of job satisfaction, employee salary by positiveness of work environment. That'd be the three-way interaction, which we have right here. So once we get into testing our interactions, the significance of our interactions and of our moderators, now we are inquiring into complexity of particular effects. And are they just one effect across people and their characteristics, place, circumstances, situations, or multiple effects? As we saw with job satisfaction, there's actually multiple effects on organizational commitment, depending on the level of our moderators. So we can test that here with our regression equation, and this is an example of how you do that. All right, so now with that putting of the idea of moderation into the context of the regression equation, and as the means by which then you make your inquiries into the complexity of effects, we're taking things from there.